Hello and welcome everyone to another Fireside chat featuring Harrie, Doc's lead at NodeOps. Considering the news that broke out last week on the rebranding of Atlas Network to NodeOps Network as part of the NodeOps 2.0, you could say, evolution, which we'll delve into later on, we thought it would be suitable to have this conversation to further dive into some of the details of the rebranding and provide additional context as to what NodeOps Network is and what people can expect from NodeOps Network and NodeOps in 2025. So that said, why don't we start by providing some context and an overview of the current cloud compute market? So elaborating on some of the key challenges, the concentrated market share, and so on. And of course, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Eric. Yeah, nice to be here. Sure, let's consider what it's like for people who are consuming cloud compute at the moment. And there's two main frictions. But first, let's just check that all the listeners, I'm sure they're mostly technical, but when we're talking about cloud compute, we're talking about large server rooms. They've usually got physical security, their own cooling systems, and all the apps that we use all day, every day, all the AI agents that so many people use every day. That's the compute power that they're consuming. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about the cloud. And what's happened over the years is so common across so many business verticals is that the competition has eaten the smaller players and consolidated the cloud market down to just three major service providers.
Right.
And that has some rather unintended consequences that are frictions for people looking to purchase cloud compute. So let's just stick to two. I can go on about this forever. Maybe we'll have another fireside chat because it's a deep rabbit hole. But one of the major issues is that your supplier has a lot of power if you've got a Web 2 or Web 3 business that relies on being online, and that compute is essential to the core business. And what that means is you're giving often a single supplier power to turn your business off, and at the behest of themselves or a governmental request. And there's
Right.
many examples of this happening. The second friction point is you end up with vendor lock-in. Now, a lot of this is partly because of the pricing models that these large providers put in place. And what they do is they force people to take reserved instances. So what they're doing, really, the cloud providers, is they don't want to face the business risk of not being able to predict how much compute they need in 3 months' time, 6 months' time, years. They force the compute consumer to try and project their business needs and
Right.
estimate how much cloud compute they need, and then negotiate that amount at like preferential prices. And that's a lock-in mechanism. So then you've now negotiated it and you've got it sitting there, and it's a massive inefficiency in the system because many businesses end up over provisioned, for example. So the current status quo is not really an ideal compute model. And that first point of like your supplier having that much control over your business is especially troublesome for something like a Web3 protocol or a blockchain.
Correct.
Because, of course, the very logical layer is that no one player should have control over too many of the nodes. And these nodes need to be decentralized, both geographically as well as in terms of who's got control over them. So for Web3 in particular, it's a very problematic space to have a centralized agency having control over so many nodes.
Totally agreed. And how would you say that this degree of almost monopolized power, right, and centralized power led to NodeOps Cloud coming along, right, as an idea and as a necessity from the NodeOps team?
Yeah, so that's the problems we're here to solve.
Exactly. And so, would you be able to, considering we know very well the brains behind the team and how they think and they observe constantly, and as a result of the experiences and some of the issues encountered, that you've very eloquently and sort of transparently put forward, how did NodeOps Cloud come to be sort of necessary and needed as a solution, right? So would you be able to outline why NodeOps Cloud and what is it, and so some of a high level overview of some of its key characteristics and properties, if possible.
Sure, yeah. So what it is, the network itself, is it's a permissionless, decentralized compute orchestration layer. What I'm trying out on my gran at the moment is it's like the Netflix of compute. So just in the same way that when you consume a movie on Netflix and you just get to go and browse and choose genre and press play, and all the technical complexity is abstracted away, and those more technical listeners will probably know that we don't have to think about like the how to get lowest latency for that movie so that it streams from like edge compute. We don't have to worry if a cluster goes down. We don't have to jump off the sofa and like do anything about it. Like that's all managed by Netflix on our behalf. And very importantly, if you pay Netflix, you can be sure that you're going to get that service provided. You're going to be able to stream that movie or whatever if it is you've selected from the marketplace. So NodeOps is stepping in to play a very similar role in the compute marketplace. So if we want to break apart what it really is it's a compute marketplace that is secured by an L2 protocol, which is NodeOps Network's protocol,
Right.
that is leveraging a token on Ethereum that will enforce the protocol's economic security. So if I was trying to explain that to your gran, I'd probably simplify it down to people can earn in the network as long as they behave appropriately. And if they don't behave appropriately, then they'll lose their earnings. So it's a mechanism which enforces the good behavior of all the participants. So if we drill down, you can think of it as three layers. You can think of the protocol itself, you
Right.
can think of the ecosystem participants, and you can think of the actual marketplace participants. So I guess least complicated is marketplace participants. You've got the compute providers and the compute consumers. If you think about the ecosystem participants, you've got people who are willing to play roles, mostly validating and monitoring roles within the ecosystem. So you can verify whether the compute consumer paid the compute provider, for example. So there's these verification roles that have to be processed because the protocol itself doesn't have eyes and ears. It needs to have that information fed to it. And then at the protocol layer, what that's doing is that's negating the need for entire like legal and compliance departments because everything's done at the smart contract level. As long as it gets the information in from these observers to say what's happened, then the incentivization and the slashing happens at a smart contract level and is automated. So it's providing this economically sound mechanism for a marketplace of just providers and consumers to effectively interact with each other. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And you also embedded in your answer my next question, which was going to be, who would you say that NodeOps Cloud was actually for? And you've answered
Okay.
that
Well,
partially.
yeah, partially. I mean, I guess if you want to just talk about the cloud marketplace and forget about the ecosystem participants and the protocol that's managing it, the cloud
Wait,
marketplace itself.
let me
Go on.
100%. I was gonna let's go in that direction, but let's also add an extra layer in the sense that, do you think that in the next 12 months, sort of these are speculative, not indicative timeframes, do you think that the beginning the NodeOps Cloud marketplace will appeal to a specific category of stakeholders, or you know what I mean, set of participants, and then we'll be able to reach that, like my grandma or your grandma, as a solution where we're able to abstract away and iterate and streamline always as much as possible until we get to that final state.
Yeah, if we go back to the first point, which is that the cloud provider status quo model is not a great model specifically for Web3 and blockchain-based protocols, then I suspect that is the biggest area of need because this is offering a level of decentralization that's difficult to achieve using the typical providers
Correct.
because you can literally choose. We're going a bit more deeply into what the service it will provide is, but part of the service provision is to be able to actually choose your geography for your compute. So that if you're trying to build a resilient network that is distributed globally, so that if there's any extreme weather events or extreme social events, then those physical servers with their security layer and their cooling systems and all the stuff that matters about the machine itself, that those are geographically distributed. So I think that's where the biggest need is probably going to come from first, the first consumers.
Totally agreed. And I mean, it seems that we're heading towards. I mean, Black Swan events don't even seem like Black Swan events anymore, right? Considering that they're always so, like, we're constantly redefining what extraordinary is, because what was previously conceived as extraordinary is becoming part of the ordinary. So maybe this degree of decentralization will be ever more obvious, right, for people as something that is needed, right, on top of some of the points that you made.
Yeah, I mean, even Web2 provide like businesses, like if you're going to have an app and you want to reduce your dependency on a single cloud provider, then it makes sense as a Web2 app running business that you increase your resilience and your geographical spread. It's going to be useful for some of the burgeoning sectors like AI agents and machine learning, because it's not always easy to just plug in the compute you need to a model that you've developed. And like there's many other use cases that it kind of lends itself towards, because the team are abstracting away that edge compute and worrying about the latency on your behalf. Then that means if you've got gaming metaverse projects or a content delivery network, that that this is a good solution. And of course, anybody who's worried about costs because of these efficiencies that you strip away by moving to a marketplace like this, you're not being asked to provision based on your future projections. You can literally just consume what you need in what your business needs now. So anybody looking at reducing costs or censorship risk, it's a viable solution.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't have put it better. And so that's, now that we have some context on NodeOps Cloud, and yeah, would you be able to maybe yeah, shed some light also as to why today, right? I know, of course, the answer as being sort of a protagonist in the decision making, and sort of like part of the decision making as to why it was we deemed it necessary as a team, right, as a unit, for to make the decision to rebrand from Atlas Network to NodeOps Network. And I don't necessarily think rebrand is even the right term. It's, you could almost say like bringing in house, but I'll leave the answer to you. And but I think rebranding is what people would normally associate this kind of development or define it as. But
Yeah.
rename
So
it.
yeah, I'd agree with you that it's more kind of bringing in house. So what the initial vision was obviously we've got a very successful business that was revenue positive from year one, significant increase in revenue in year two, and rather than add further risk to that business, like that's a business that the team is growing. The concept of building the cloud compute marketplace was branded as the Atlas Network, and we did a testnet campaign under that brand. And I think it was a large part about splitting the risk, so separating the two businesses so
Right.
they carry their own risks. But what we discovered was that the response to the Atlas Network campaign was so overwhelming that actually we decided that rather than attempt to split the two businesses, one of the key attributes of any business relationships is actually business travels at the speed of trust. And we have trusted partners who know NodeOps's brand. And rather than like put all that effort into building an Atlas Network brand, because we didn't see the business risk as such a big issue based on the response to the testnet campaign, the decision was made to bring that all in house. So we gain the existing reputation of the NodeOps brand, and we align those two businesses, because actually one of the first users of NodeOps Network Compute Marketplace is going to be NodeOps in the
Exactly.
form of the original project, which is the NodeOps console and the B2B services. So what we're doing is we're doing what so few startups can ever be in a position to do, which is we're launching a product that already has product market fit. We're going to we're going to guarantee that some of that demand side
from day one.
From day one. Our target for this year is to achieve 70% usage of the compute that's on the marketplace. And I suspect we're going to be a large part of that ourselves.
I mean, couldn't have said it better also in this instance, and I think that will help folks understand why we made the decision today, and inevitably also how it will be beneficial in the long run. I'm more than sure of this. And at a sort of larger scope, right? Sort of zooming away from just NodeOps specifically, why would you say that 2025 is the year of decentralized compute? Like, compute has been something that people have talked about as a meta over the last months, but why do you think that this year is the year of decentralized compute? And also use that as an assist as to what can NodeOps users and believers look forward to from the team this year.
Well, 2025 is certainly the year for us to be doing this. If you look back over the last 4 quarters at the cloud compute market in general, that has expanded by 60%. And most of that's driven by the AL and the machine learn AI and the machine learning marketplaces increasing. But the interesting thing is we're agnostic to what the use cases are. So we don't care if DeepSync is using CPU or GPU. We're going to launch with a CPU marketplace, but on the roadmap is bringing in GPU for 2025.
Right.
So we're agnostic as to what that demand side is doing. It's purely about creating that marketplace where the pricing is more fair and the ability to decentralize is built in and the orchestration is built in. So I suspect that what we're seeing is a merging of demand with this model that we have that we believe will really suit consumers who don't want to have to do all of the DevOps side of building their compute infrastructure, but want to essentially leverage the benefits of the learnings and experience of NodeOps DevOps team who've built NodeOps Console. And what they're going to have is this simplified, templatized, sort of template-based marketplace,
right,
where they can literally go with their use cases and say, I've got this use case. This is the template I want to use to fit to my infrastructure requirements. And then all of the orchestration is handled and all of the monitoring is handled so that you don't have to overinvest in that side of your business. So I think just the perfect storm of need and demand is there this year, which is such an exciting time then for us to be launching into. And if you look at, I don't know if the listeners have been to the June Dash. If you haven't, then consider going along. The numbers are insane. So we saw pre-Sybil analysis. We saw over 3 million wallets registered. If we cut that down to unique users, you're probably looking more about 300,000 unique wallets. So nice try, all those people with the bots. And then if you're looking at just the response that we had to the testnet has got an ability for people to come and be providers. So again, nice try, about 85,000 machines people tried to onboard. And that's down to a few thousand running. So what that means is a load of chancers thought that they could give us their laptops and their desktops and add those to the network. So unfortunately, the compute demands are a bit bigger than that. So many of them have not been allowed on the network. But you can see just from the response of the retail market to this that there's definitely interest and definitely demand for this deep in model.
Couldn't agree more. And yeah, I mean, the numbers have blown me away on a week by week basis ever since we launched the testnet, which, considering the pace at which everything occurs in the space, seems like a while ago, but it's just south of 2 months, right? And so it's just 9. I think this is the 9th week that we're getting into. So these numbers are crazy, and we want to thank the community once again for getting involved and exploring and learning more, right, about the opportunities in place, because at the end of the day, it is also an incentivized testnet. So for every action, there is a reaction, and we want to reward you, right?
Yeah,
For
totally. And look, it's not like we didn't get value out of that 80,000 machines that were on board, because what that's doing is battle testing the
exactly.
ability of the front end to cope with the demand. So even though the machines might not have made it on, it's of high value to us because we can be confident that the front end was working well and accommodated that many requests.
Totally. And something that you mentioned in your answer, which triggered a thought in my mind, which I agree with, is that the 60% growth, right, year on year for the compute, it's, I think it's only the beginning, honestly. And I think that the multiplier effect, we can't even begin to fathom and predict the rate at which AI just in general will accelerate and sort of grow, right? And do you think we'll get to a stage, this is the question, do you think we'll get to a stage where users will always have an ever increasing hunger for more help, right, at 360 degrees of AI, which could be as help me draft this article, or help me put together this piece of content, put together this transcript for this video that I'm doing, whatever, that the end user won't necessarily be preoccupied with the origin, right, of the compute. So it could be us from as a decentralized solution, or it could be an Amazon, like an AWS, or like a Google Cloud, that so we can all win together, so that the distinction between decentralized and centralized, well, like that border will become ever more blurry. Do you think that's something that we're heading towards?
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the our lack of ability to sort of predict the demand curve, I agree, because we don't know to what extent using these AI agents is going to be simplified and brought into our lives, and it's hard to know what the real uptake is. You know, it's obviously the highly technical, highly educated are there with bells on trying these things out, but it will most definitely trickle down through to a much wider user base, and that is going to, of course, push the compute demand as the sort of hybrid between the cloud, the major cloud providers, and these decentralized alternative offerings. I think it's interesting. It's going to be very interesting when we see what the Web2 world does in response to offerings that have no vendor lock-in
Right.
and have a level of orchestration, so that there's very large DevOps departments in many very large companies performing these tasks. So it'll be interesting to see if those efficiencies, like the price savings that come from offering these efficiencies, to see if that actually kind of wakes up an awareness that what the provider they're currently using is not necessarily doing them any favors and there's a better
Right.
option. So it's going to be interesting to see if that is also a growth area.
Yeah, I mean, I think the conclusion is what you said in the previous answer. Definitely exciting time to be in this space, and yeah, I think we've got a front row seat to a transformation, not even as maybe a revolution, because I think that will be the scale of it. But I'd like to have this conversation with you in 12 months' time, and we can sit back on our prediction and evaluate how things played out. In terms of concluding remarks, right? Is there any concluding thoughts that you'd like to share, or comments that you'd like to share with the community? Any sort of insight that you could give into Node with the dollar sign in front of? And that would be the time for you, as we've had this pleasant chat.
Okay. Well, certainly no when token answer coming yet, but one of the very awesome features that's coming in very shortly is that those original holders of Node are Wave One lucky airdrops. Very, very shortly, we'll be able to use that node as credits in the console. So part of the V2 for Node Console is a simplified payment mechanism, so you don't have to go out and pay with the payment partner with your wallet every time you subscribe to Node. You can bring credits in, and so one of the features is that node is essentially now a form of cash payment, so that you can bring in your node as credits and then run nodes for whichever your favorite protocol is by using Node the token. Yeah, so that's exciting for the first quarter of this year.
Undoubtedly, undoubtedly. And Harry, like, I look forward to doing this again. I'm sure we'll have plenty more to discuss as we have plenty other stuff too, and developments and news that we're sitting on. But of course, in due time, we'll make sure to reveal everything for our community and to continuously work to bring utility right to our end user, because ultimately that's what we do, is to try and bring forward solutions that are product first, utility first, and just users first, right, at 360 degrees. So that said, Harrie, thank you very much. Any concluding words that you'd like to share with the communities? Now is the time for you.
Just thanks to everybody who's jumped into testnet. If you haven't yet, please come have a go. You know that my machine, not your PC, not your laptop that's in use, but have a go at trying to provision a machine. There's even a guide on the docs if you want to use some cloud compute. There's many providers give away some free credits, so you can go earn some node points just by using your cloud compute if you don't have a machine that you can add to the network. So just go have fun playing the testnet, because there's a lot of opportunities there.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Harrie. Until next time, we'll do it again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.